No one believed that this simple man could raise such a brilliant young woman until the whole world heard his words. From the outside, to those who glanced at him, he seemed just another ordinary man, living his modest routine in a quiet neighborhood, surrounded by identical houses, old cars, and streets that knew his every step. But behind his understated appearance lay a story no one imagined. A story made of silent sacrifices, sleepless nights, tears unseen, and a transformed everything around him. Clara's grandfather was always the target of curious glances and veiled judgments. To the neighbors, he seemed inadequate, incapable of handling the responsibilities of raising a child alone. Some whispered in the school hallways, "How is he going to take care of her alone? It won't work." Others cast looks of pity or perhaps disapproval, as if every step he took was watched, judged, and condemned. But no one knew. No one knew that this man with calloused hands, slow steps, and a firm voice hid the dedication of a true hero. His every gesture, no matter how small, was an act of love that transcended any judgment. During Clara's childhood, each morning began with the same silent routine. Her grandfather would rise before the sun, prepare breakfast, straighten his granddaughter's uniform, and remind her of every detail of the day ahead. He was there for every stumble, every doubt, every small challenge that arose. And even when life seemed unfair, he remained steadfast, invisible to society, but absolutely present for the only person who truly mattered, his granddaughter. What others didn't see was that those work-roughened hands held infinite patience, that those tired eyes were capable of seeing dreams greater than any hardship, that silent routine was the foundation of unshakable trust. The mystery, however, lay not only in her grandfather's dedication, but in the silent impact he had on his granddaughter. Clara, despite her age, displayed a brilliant intelligence, a resilient spirit, and a courage that surprised even her teachers. Many wondered how a child could have such determination, such self-confidence, when society seemed to believe she would only face difficulties. The answer lay in each of her grandfather's invisible sacrifices, in the long nights studying with her, in the small life lessons that never seemed important, in the stories told at night, in the way he held her hand when the world seemed too heavy. But not all was silence and dedication. The judgments continued, veiled, persistent. There were disapproving looks at school parties, malicious comments on school social media, and that constant feeling that the world was waiting for a mistake, a failure, a demonstration of inadequacy. Grandfather's every step was measured by standards he never asked to follow. And yet he continued. He continued because he understood something most didn't. Raising someone isn't just about providing food or security. It's about offering love, teaching courage, and showing the value of hope, even when everything seems to be against it. The mystery surrounding that simple man's life wasn't just how he would manage to raise his granddaughter alone, but what would happen when his silent dedication found its moment of recognition. When all those sleepless nights, all those invisible gestures, and all those small acts of love were finally revealed to the world. And no one could have imagined that this revelation would come from a young woman who, on her graduation day, would take the stage and, with simple but truthful words, transform the outlook of all who had ever doubted. The seemingly ordinary story of a grandfather caring for his granddaughter held a power no one could measure. Every silence, every attentive look, every protective gesture was shaping something greater than any human judgment. And while the world focused on criticizing, ignoring, and underestimating, a young woman grew. Up under the shadow of silent dedication, ready to surprise everyone with the depth of the love that guided her. Until that day, no one could have imagined what was about to happen. Until that day, the judgmental gazes had no idea what they would witness. And when Clara finally spoke, the whole world would hear. Because there was something no one could deny. The power of true love can change perceptions, shatter prejudices, and transform lives forever. And it all began with a simple man who believed, even when no one else did, that his granddaughter could be extraordinary. Clara's grandfather was always the target of curious looks and malicious comments. At school, mothers would whisper to each other, "He can't take care of her alone. I don't know how she survives like this. Is he capable?" The whispers seemed to multiply each day, and each judgmental look weighed more heavily than any hardship he faced. But no one knew. No one even imagined what truly went on inside that modest house, with its simple walls, the smell of fresh coffee in the morning, and the constant sound of quiet footsteps in the kitchen. There existed something there that no judgment could measure, an immense, silent, and unwavering love. While the world watched from the outside, making assumptions based on appearances, Clara's grandfather devoted himself completely to his daughter. He was present in every detail, from the smallest gestures to life's greatest challenges. He carefully prepared breakfast, laid out his granddaughter's uniform, and remembered every school commitment, every test, every homework assignment. Even tired, even when the routine seemed overwhelming, he never let Clara feel any weight on his shoulders. For him, caring for her wasn't an obligation, but a mission of love. And each night, when everyone finally retired, he reflected on every sacrifice, every hidden tear, and every silent gesture, knowing he was building something no one else could see. Trust, security, and a solid foundation for his granddaughter's future. The curious thing is that while the world questioned his capabilities, he never let himself be discouraged. Every snide comment, every critical glance, was just noise compared to the silent commitment he had made when Clara was still too young to understand the loss they had suffered. He knew there was no manual for raising someone alone, that there were no clear rules about unconditional love, but he understood something many ignored. Raising someone is more than providing. It's being present, believing, and teaching the value of life even in the face of adversity. And Clara felt it. Even though she was young, she sensed the invisible dedication that shaped his life. Every word of encouragement, every night studying together, every bedtime story carried more than knowledge. It carried the love that sustained everything. It was a silent but powerful love that taught her to face the world with courage and resilience. Yet no one on the outside could see it. To the school, to the neighbors, to the critics, he was just a man trying, with limited effort, to care for a child who deserved so much more. But what the world didn't know was that this silent dedication was about to reveal itself in a way no one could ignore. Every judgment, every doubt, every spiteful comment had created the opposite effect. It fueled her grandfather's determination and strengthened Clara's will to show that love, care, and true sacrifice always find a way. And when the right moment arrived, when the girl's story was told to the world, all those critical eyes would bow before the strength that existed in every invisible gesture, in every sleepless night, in every act of love that seemed too small to be noticed. What seemed simple or even insufficient was actually paving the way for something extraordinary, a moment when all doubt would be dispelled, when every judgment would turn into recognition, and when the world would understand that sometimes the greatest heroes are those who work silently, away from the eyes and criticism. Clara was growing, and with her, the anticipation grew, the moment when her story and her grandfather's love would finally be revealed, leaving everyone speechless, moved, and inspired. And while the world continued to watch in confusion, that simple, seemingly ordinary man continued to care for, love, and prepare his granddaughter for what was to come. Something no one expected was about to happen. And when it did, everyone would remember, it's not what others say that defines you, but the love, dedication, and quiet strength we carry in our hearts. Everyone thought Clara would have a difficult childhood, that growing up alone with a grandfather without the constant presence of a mother would be synonymous with deprivation, lack of opportunities, and limitations she would never be able to overcome. People spoke quietly, some with pity, others with judgment. She will never have the same chances as other children. He won't be able to take care of her like he should. This child will suffer more than any other, but no one understood what was happening behind the doors of that simple house, nor the silent details that transformed Clara's life into something much greater than anyone could have imagined. Her grandfather's every gesture carried an invisible strength, a dedication that went unnoticed by those who only glanced superficially. He didn't need to make grand declarations or boast about his achievements. Every morning he rose early to make his granddaughter's coffee. Every night he reviewed her homework. Every whispered piece of advice when the world seemed too difficult was an act of love that shaped not only Clara's present, but also her future. While society waited for mistakes or signs of weakness, he silently taught courage, discipline, resilience, and the ability to believe in herself, even when everything seemed to be conspiring against her. The world saw only a difficult situation and labeled it as imminent failure, but no one realized that those difficulties were opportunities in disguise. Every obstacle Clara faced, every snide comment she received from peers, every doubt cast on her abilities was also a learning opportunity, and her grandfather was there to transform each challenge into a lesson. He taught that true love isn't just about protecting, but also about preparing someone to face the world head-on. And that's exactly what he did with Clara, day after day, silently, without expecting recognition or applause. And the girl, even at a young age, was slowly beginning to understand this. She felt in her grandfather's eyes a trust no one else demonstrated. She felt in his daily actions the certainty that no matter what others thought or said, she had someone who believed in her unconditionally. Every silent gesture, every invisible sacrifice, every sleepless night, reviewing her studies or helping her face her fears was as if she were writing chapters of a story that one day would be told so that everyone would understand the true dimension of their love. What no one knew was that those moments of dedication were paving the way for something much greater. Each seemingly simple act, each routine of care and attention, each word of encouragement was laying the foundation for a moment when everyone would finally see what had been hidden until then. Clara was learning, growing, strengthening, and preparing for a moment of recognition, for an opportunity to transform the perception of all who doubted her and her grandfather. And that moment was approaching. Something was about to happen that would leave everyone speechless. A moment when critical looks, judgmental words, and negative expectations would be replaced by surprise, emotion, and admiration. Because what seemed fragile, what seemed improbable, was actually strength, care, and love in their purest form. And when the right moment arrived, no one could deny what creates character, courage, and brilliance in a person is not external circumstances, but the silent and constant love that sustains every step, every dream, and every achievement. The public didn't know it yet, but Clara was about to show everyone that true wealth isn't found in appearance, money, or ease, but in the dedication that transforms lives. Every small, invisible gesture her grandfather made, every sacrifice that went unnoticed, was now about to become visible, and no one, not for a second, would be able to ignore the impact of that love. And when the right moment arrived, everyone would remember, true love and silent dedication can overcome any doubt, any judgment, and any expectation. She began to talk about dreams, hardships, and overcoming. And then something happened that no one could have predicted. Clara's voice, firm and full of emotion, cut through the silence of the room, penetrating the hearts of everyone present. Simple words, yet charged with truth, began to reveal an entire universe unseen. Each sentence told not only her story, but the story of a man who went unnoticed, of a love no one recognized, of silent sacrifices that changed her life forever. My grandfather always believed in me, even when everyone else doubted me. These words, spoken with conviction and tenderness, turned the once critical looks into surprise. Parents, teachers, and peers began to realize that behind the seemingly ordinary figure of a simple man lay a force that sustained dreams, shaped character, and inspired courage. Every sleepless night, every small gesture of care, every moment of infinite patience was finally being recognized, not only by the daughter of his eyes, but by everyone around him. As Clara continued her speech, the audience began to feel the weight of each silent sacrifice. These weren't just words. They were lived experiences, gestures that carried dedication, sleepless nights, and worries that no judgment could measure. Every step her grandfather took, every worry he had, now had a voice, and that voice spoke through her granddaughter, revealing a truth no one could ignore. True love is not measured in praise, appearances, or material wealth. It is measured in the consistency of small acts, in silent strength, and in complete surrender to the one you love. Every sleepless night, every silent sacrifice was for me. Hearing these words, some saw tears well up in the eyes of teachers who imagined what was happening behind that modest door. Parents who had previously judged now realized they were facing something far greater than any appearance or prejudice. Before them was living proof that dedication, love, and perseverance can overcome any obstacle. Every gesture of the grandfather, which had previously seemed ordinary, now seemed extraordinary, and every snide comment or look of doubt lost in time faded before the power of those words. And then the silence turned to pure emotion. Clara, with the simplicity of someone who knows the true greatness of love, delivered to the world a lesson no one expected. That the strongest bonds are built in stillness, that true strength manifests in silent care, and that every sacrifice made with love is an eternal investment in someone who will become great. The audience couldn't look away. Every word made everyone feel, almost physically, the weight of the grandfather's love and dedication. And in that instant, something changed. What seemed improbable, fragile, or even impossible became inspiration. That story, which seemed to be simply about a girl and her grandfather, touched everyone present, sparking reflections on their own lives, their relationships, and the value of silent love that often goes unnoticed. Everyone realized that what seemed simple was, in fact, extraordinary, and that the moment they were witnessing was only the beginning of a greater revelation, a transformation of perspectives, of judgments, and of hearts. Today, I am proof of his love. The phrase echoed throughout the room as a powerful reminder that true love doesn't need to be visible to be real. Every sacrifice, every concern, every gesture that went unnoticed finally had its reward. And as the applause rang out, no one could help but wonder, how often do we judge without knowing? How often do we ignore the silent force that shapes lives and destinies? That was the moment when everyone would understand that silent love can change everything, and that true greatness often hides in the most discreet details and the simplest actions. The world didn't know it yet, but that moment marked a turning point. Clara and her grandfather's story was about to inspire, transform, and move far more than just those present. Because when silent dedication meets the courage to reveal itself, no one ever looks at the world the same way again. Sometimes the judgment of others blinds us to what truly matters. Critical looks, malicious comments, and other people's expectations can make us doubt who we are, or even question the values we hold dear. But what seems impossible or improbable doesn't always reflect the truth about the strength, dedication, and love that exist in our lives. Clara's grandfather, with his silent routine, his discreet gestures, and his constant love, showed that what many people ignore or despise can, in fact, be the most solid foundation of an entire life. What seemed impossible became inspiration. Every sacrifice made without applause, every sleepless night reviewing homework, every silent act of care became something that deeply touched not only her granddaughter but everyone around her. What no one believed, what seemed limited or insufficient, revealed the true power of love and dedication. Clara, upon taking the stage, became living proof that strength lies not in words of approval, but in daily, consistent, silent actions that build character, confidence, and courage. What seemed like weakness revealed strength. A man alone, without support, facing criticism and doubtful looks, showed that strength doesn't need to be displayed to be real. Every challenge, every obstacle that arose in his and Clara's path became an opportunity to teach resilience, determination, and courage. What the world saw as incapacity was actually a source of motivation, a reminder that true love is measured by constancy, patience, and the faith we place in those we love. And what was love in action? The love that goes unannounced, that doesn't seek applause or immediate recognition, is often the most powerful. It reveals itself in attention to detail, in the willingness to sacrifice one's own comfort for the good of another, in the courage to continue believing even when no one else does. Every gesture of Clara's grandfather, which might have gone unnoticed by the eyes of the world, was actually building a future of hope, confidence, and success. And when, The right moment arrived when Clara spoke her words with sincerity and emotion. Everyone finally understood the depth of that silent love. This story reminds us that we are often quick to judge and slow to understand. We are quick to criticize and slow to recognize the efforts of others. But each life is made up of small, invisible acts that together can transform destinies, shift perspectives, and inspire generations. What we deem insufficient can be extraordinary. What we ignore can be transformative. And those who seem fragile or ordinary may contain within themselves the strength to accomplish feats the world never imagined. Now, think for a moment. How many times have you judged someone without knowing the full story? How many times have you failed to appreciate a silent gesture that, to that person, meant the world? And even more importantly, how many times have you failed to act out of fear of what others would think, without realizing that true strength lies in your own actions, not in the opinions of others? Share in the comments. Have you ever witnessed or experienced something similar, where a silent gesture changed everything? Or have you ever felt unfairly judged for not reflecting your dedication or effort? Sharing your experience can inspire others facing similar situations. If this story touched your heart, leave your like to show that silent love deserves recognition. And don't forget to subscribe in the channel to receive more real and moving stories that remind us of the power of dedication, courage, and love in action. Each story shared here is a reminder that small actions done with love can transform lives, including yours.